My baby crawled into the Mafia boss's office. Then he said, "You both are mine. I need this job no matter what happens." The words left my lips as a whisper while I stood before the towering iron gates of Blackwood Manor, my arms wrapped protectively around my 4-month-old daughter. Lily was mercifully asleep, bundled in a soft cream-colored blanket that concealed her tiny form from view. If she cried now, if anyone discovered what I was hiding, everything would fall apart before it even began. My name is Caleb, and I'm an Omega, a single parent, completely alone in this world. Lily wasn't supposed to exist. When I first discovered I was pregnant, I had nothing. No support system. No savings. No hope for any kind of future. The father, a brief fling, a mistake I'd made during a moment of desperate loneliness, had made his position abundantly clear when I'd called him, voice shaking, to tell him the news. Not my problem. Handle it. Click. Dial tone. That was the last I ever heard from him. The doctors presented abortion as the logical solution, and in my terrified, broke, utterly unprepared state, I agreed. I was 22, living in a studio apartment with mold in the corners and a landlord who didn't care. I couldn't raise a child. I couldn't even raise myself properly. But something went wrong during the procedure. Medical complications, they said. Technical failures. Whatever the clinical explanation, the result was undeniable. 7 months later, I held my daughter in my arms for the first time, and that moment changed everything. Looking down at her tiny, perfect face, those round cheeks, that dusting of dark hair, those eyes that hadn't yet learned to focus but already seemed to see straight through to my soul, I understood that this wasn't a mistake. This was meant to be. This was my purpose. But society doesn't care about purpose or destiny. A single Omega parent faces closed doors everywhere. No employment opportunities. No respect. Nothing but judgment and suspicion. Landlords won't rent to you. Daycares won't take your child. Employers see you coming and suddenly all positions are filled. I learned quickly that honesty would get me nowhere. So I constructed an elaborate lie. I forged documents claiming Lily was my cousin's child, abandoned after my cousin's arrest on drug charges. I altered enough details about my own background to pass basic screening. And then I applied for a maintenance position at Blackwood Manor, home of the notorious Mafia boss, Dante Blackwood. I chose this place specifically because of its reputation. In Dante Blackwood's world, questions weren't asked. Backgrounds weren't scrutinized too deeply. You showed up, you worked hard, and you kept your mouth shut. That was the unspoken contract. And I could work. I could keep secrets. I could survive as long as Lily remained hidden. The security guard barely glanced at my forged papers before waving me through. New staff. They probably saw dozens of us come and go. The moment I stepped onto the grounds, I felt overwhelmed by the sheer scale of everything. Manicured gardens stretched endlessly in every direction, with fountains and hedges sculpted into impossible shapes. The manor itself looked like something from a Gothic romance. All dark stone and towering windows, an imposing architecture that whispered of wealth so vast it had become abstract. And somewhere inside, the man who controlled an empire of darkness conducted his business. I was led through a service entrance and down to the basement level, where staff quarters were located. My assigned room was small but functional. A single bed, a narrow cupboard, and a compact bathroom. Nothing luxurious, but it was private. Safe. Perfect for what I needed to do. The moment the door closed, I got to work. Creating a makeshift hiding space beneath the bed, I arranged soft blankets and pillows to form a cushion nest. Added Lily's favorite stuffed rabbit. Tested the visibility from every angle. Unless someone got down on their hands and knees and looked directly underneath, they'd never know a baby was concealed there. I set up a small camera monitor, a cheap one I bought secondhand, and positioned it so I could check on her from my phone while I worked. Not perfect, but it would have to do. Lily slept on, blissfully unaware of the dangerous game we were playing. My first 2 days passed without incident. I worked in the industrial kitchen, scrubbed hallways until they gleamed, and kept my head down. The other staff members were too busy with their own responsibilities to pay much attention to the new hire. I was just another face in the small army of people who kept this massive estate running smoothly. Every few hours I'd slip back to my room, check on Lily, feed her, change her, settle her back into her hidden nest, and return to work. It was exhausting, the constant back and forth, the perpetual knot of anxiety in my chest, the way my heart stopped every time my phone buzzed. But it was working. No one suspected a thing. But on the third morning, everything changed. I was mopping the main corridor on the ground floor when I heard them. Heavy, purposeful footsteps, accompanied by the low murmur of serious conversation. The kind of voices that were used to being obeyed without question. I looked up, and my heart stopped cold in my chest. Dante Blackwood. The man himself. The owner of this empire. The alpha whose very name made people speak in hushed, fearful tones. The subject of whispered rumors that ranged from he personally executed his own father to take control, to he once made a man disappear for looking at him wrong. He moved through the hallway flanked by bodyguards, all of them dressed in dark suits that screamed both money and menace. Dante stood at least 6'4", with broad shoulders that filled out his perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His jawline could have been carved from granite, and his eyes, dark as obsidian, sharp as broken glass, swept the corridor with the practiced awareness of a predator who had never once been prey. This was the man I'd seen in newspaper photos, always in the background of some scandal or investigation that never quite stuck. In person, he was far more intimidating than any photograph could capture. As they approached, I did what any sensible Omega would do. I lowered my gaze and pressed myself against the wall, making myself as small and invisible as possible. The first rule of Omega survival: never challenge an alpha, especially one who could destroy you with a single phone call. But as he passed, something unexpected happened. His footsteps paused, just for a heartbeat. I could feel his attention focus on me like a physical weight. When I dared to glance up through my lashes, I found those dark eyes fixed directly on me. He studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle, taking in every detail as if committing me to memory. Then his alpha scent hit me. Smoke and whiskey. Old leather and something darker beneath, something that smelled like thunderstorms and midnight and danger wrapped in silk. My Omega biology responded immediately, flooding my system with unwanted awareness. My pulse quickened. My breathing changed. Every instinct I possessed screamed at me that this was someone powerful, dangerous, and utterly off-limits. And beneath that flood of awareness came something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Heat. Just a flicker, just the barest whisper of it, but unmistakable. My body recognizing his as compatible in a way that had nothing to do with logic and everything to do with biology. I clamped down on it immediately, forcing my scent to remain neutral, forcing my body to behave. I couldn't afford to react. Couldn't afford to draw attention. I was here to hide, not to catch the attention of the most powerful alpha in the city. The moment stretched impossibly long, though it could only have been a few seconds. Then he continued walking, his bodyguards flowing around him like a dark tide. But his scent lingered in the air, and my heart continued its frantic rhythm long after he disappeared around the corner. I forced myself to return to mopping, though my hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the handle twice. 3 times. Get it together, Caleb. You can't afford to fall apart. Lily needs you. The reminder of my daughter steadied me. I took a deep breath, centered myself, and kept working. But 15 minutes later, as I was finishing the corridor, a sharp voice made me jump. You there. The new one. I turned to find a woman in her 50s striding toward me, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, her expression pinched with impatience. Mrs. Vance, the head housekeeper. I've been warned about her on my first day. She ran the household staff with military precision, and tolerated exactly 0 mistakes. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Blackwood's private study on the top floor needs attention. He's requested a deep cleaning before his evening meetings. You're to go up there immediately. My stomach dropped to my feet. The top floor. Dante Blackwood's private domain, where he conducted business, where he met with his most trusted associates, where I had absolutely no business being. And Lily was still down in the basement, hidden in that makeshift nest beneath my bed. What if she woke up? What if she started crying? What if someone discovered her while I was 3 floors away, unable to do anything? But I couldn't show any of this panic to Mrs. Vance. I couldn't give her any reason to question me or look too closely at my circumstances. Yes, ma'am. I'll head up right now. I gathered my cleaning supplies with hands that wouldn't quite stop shaking. As I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the top floor, a cold dread settled in my chest. I needed this job desperately. For Lily's sake. For our survival. But I was about to enter the private office of one of the most dangerous men in the city, while my greatest secret lay vulnerable and unprotected 3 floors below. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Before me stretched a quiet hallway leading to a set of imposing wooden double doors. Dante Blackwood's office. I could hear his voice from inside, low, commanding, and currently engaged in what sounded like a tense phone conversation. The shipment moves tomorrow night, Marcus. I don't accept excuses. I expect results. Pause. I don't care about the complications. Make it happen. I stood frozen in the hallway, uncertain whether to knock or wait. The decision was made for me when the conversation abruptly ended and I heard footsteps approaching from inside. The door swung open before I could step back. Dante Blackwood filled the doorway, still holding his phone. Those dark eyes locked onto mine with immediate recognition. He remembered me from the hallway encounter. Up close, the sheer force of his presence was even more overwhelming. I could see the fine details now, a slight stubble along his jaw, the way his dark hair was styled with careless perfection, the crisp lines of his expensive white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle. What are you doing here? His tone wasn't hostile, merely curious, as if finding staff members outside his private office was an unusual occurrence. Sir, Mrs. Vance sent me. She said your office required deep cleaning. I held up my caddy of supplies like a shield, hating how my voice wavered. His gaze traveled over me slowly, methodically, as if he was cataloging every detail for future reference. The scrutiny made me want to disappear into the floor. Finally, he stepped aside and gestured me in. Come in, but don't touch anything on my desk or file cabinets. Those are off limits. I slipped past him into the office and had to suppress a gasp. The space was massive, easily the size of 3 of my basement rooms combined. One entire wall consisted of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's skyline. The furniture was all dark leather and polished wood, masculine and expensive, but not ostentatious. His desk was immaculate, with neat stacks of folders and a top-of-the-line computer setup. But what caught my attention was the personal touch I hadn't expected. A bookshelf filled not with legal texts or business manuals, but with first-edition classics. A leather armchair positioned by the window with a well-worn blanket draped over it. A small bar cart with expensive whiskey and crystal glasses. This wasn't just an office. It was his space. His sanctuary. I began working quickly, focusing on the bookshelves first, dusting, organizing, trying to be as unobtrusive as possible. But my mind wasn't on the task. All I could think about was Lily, alone in that basement room. Had she woken up yet? Was she crying? Would someone hear her? The anxiety must have shown in my scent, because suddenly Dante's voice came from much closer than I expected. You seem nervous. I jumped, nearly dropping the duster. He moved behind me silently, and now stood just a few feet away, his arms crossed, watching me with that same intense focus. No, sir. I'm fine. Just trying to do a thorough job. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. Your scent says otherwise. He took another step closer. I could smell him now, that intoxicating mix of smoke, whiskey, and something darker. My omega instincts purred in response, and I had to fight to keep my expression neutral. Fear, he continued, his voice dropping lower. And something else. What are you afraid of, Caleb? He knew my name. Of course he did. He probably knew everything about everyone who worked in his home. But hearing it from his lips, that deep, rasping voice shaped around my name, sent an unexpected shiver through me. I'm just tired, that's all. Still adjusting to the new schedule. Another lie. But what else could I say? Oh, I'm terrified because I have a 4-month-old baby hidden under my bed. If you find her, my entire carefully constructed life falls apart. Dante opened his mouth to respond, but my phone vibrated insistently in my pocket. I tried to ignore it, but it vibrated again and again. Finally, unable to stand the suspense, I pulled it out with shaking hands. Mrs. Vance's message glowed on the screen. There's a baby crying in the basement. Sounds like it's coming from the staff quarters. Do you know anything about this? The blood drained from my face. My fingers went numb. The phone nearly slipped from my grasp. What's wrong? Dante's voice had changed, sharpening with concern. Or suspicion. I couldn't tell which. Nothing. I didn't get to finish the sentence. The office door burst open, and Mrs. Vance rushed in, looking flustered and carrying a small bundle in her arms. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces when I saw who she was carrying. Lily, my baby girl. Wide awake now, her face scrunched up in that pre-cry expression I knew so well, her tiny fists waving in distress. She was clearly upset for being handled by a stranger, her little lower lip trembling in a way that broke my heart. Mrs. Vance held her awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Sir, I apologize for the interruption, but I found this infant in one of the basement rooms, crying, in a nest under the bed. I don't understand how she didn't get to finish. Because Lily, with the unpredictable nature of 4-month-olds, suddenly twisted in Mrs. Vance's arms. Before the housekeeper could tighten her grip, Lily slipped down and landed on her hands and knees, well, hands and belly, since she hadn't quite mastered crawling yet, on the plush office carpet. And then, as if the universe had decided to completely destroy my life, Lily began to scoot. Not away from the strange situation. Not toward me. Directly toward Dante Blackwood. Wait, Mrs. Vance reached for her, but Lily was surprisingly quick for a baby who couldn't actually crawl. She scooted and wiggled and pulled herself across the carpet until she reached Dante's expensive Italian leather shoes. And then she grabbed onto them with her tiny fists, looked up at the imposing alpha with curious, fearless eyes, and giggled. The office fell into absolute silence. Mrs. Vance stood frozen in shock. I felt like I might actually pass out from the anxiety crushing my chest. And Lily, completely oblivious to the catastrophe she just created, babbled happily at the tall man looming above her, reaching for his shoelaces with determined little fingers. Dante looked down at the baby clinging to his shoes. Then he looked at me. Then back at Lily. I watched the pieces click together in his sharp mind. The nervousness, the fear in my scent, the phone message, and now this baby, my baby, appearing from the basement quarters. Without a word, he bent down and scooped Lily into his arms. With surprising gentleness. With practiced ease. It was such an unexpected sight. This dangerous, powerful alpha cradling a 4-month-old baby with the competence of someone who actually knew what he was doing. He supported her head automatically, adjusted his grip when she squirmed, and held her against his chest like he'd done this 100 times before. Lily immediately stopped fussing. Fascinated by this new person, she reached up and grabbed at his tie, pulling it with that determined baby grip that's impossible to break. Dante didn't even flinch. Mrs. Vance, he said, his voice calm but carrying absolute authority. Leave us. Close the door behind you. But, sir, the baby. No. Mrs. Vance hesitated for only a second before hurrying out. The heavy door clicked shut, and suddenly I was alone with Dante Blackwood, who was holding my daughter and looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Sit down, Caleb. He gestured to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. My legs felt like jelly as I moved to the chair and sank into it. Dante settled into his own chair behind the desk, still holding Lily, who was now contentedly playing with his tie, shoving the silk into her mouth with great enthusiasm. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken questions and the weight of my crumbling lies. I knew what was coming. Termination. Possibly legal action for the forged documents. Maybe even worse. I had no idea how ruthless Dante Blackwood could be when he felt betrayed. I'm waiting for an explanation, he said quietly. And somehow that calm tone was more terrifying than if he'd shouted. I took a shaky breath. There's no point in lying anymore. The truth was literally sitting in his lap, drooling on his expensive tie. She's mine, I whispered. Lily is my daughter. The confession hung in the air between us like smoke. Dante didn't react immediately. He simply continued watching me with those penetrating dark eyes while Lily happily explored the texture of his shirt collar. Continue, he said after a long moment. Not a request, a command. I swallowed hard and forced myself to meet his gaze. Her name is Lily. She's 4 months old. I brought her here when I started working. I've been hiding her in my basement quarters because I knew no one would hire a single Omega parent. So I lied on my application. I forged documents saying she was my cousin's child, abandoned, temporary situation. Where is this cousin? She didn't exist. I made her up. The admission tasted like ash. It was all fabricated so I could get work. Any work. Dante leaned back in his chair, somehow managing to look both relaxed and intensely focused despite the baby in his arms. Lily had discovered his watch now and was gumming the leather band with single-minded determination. Tell me about her other father. My chest tightened. This was the part I'd hoped never to discuss with anyone. His name is Marcus. We were together briefly, a mistake really. When I found out I was pregnant, I tried to tell him. He said it wasn't his problem. Told me to handle it myself. Then he blocked my number and disappeared. You were alone the entire pregnancy? Mostly. I tried to, the clinic presented options. I was 22, broke, living in a terrible apartment. They made termination sound like the logical choice, and I agreed because I was terrified and stupid and didn't see any other way out. Dante's expression shifted slightly. Something flickered in those dark eyes, not judgment, but something else. Something almost like understanding. But something went wrong during the procedure. Medical complications, they said. The pregnancy continued. And by the time I realized what was happening, I was already in my second trimester, and I looked at Lily, who was now trying to stuff Dante's tie into her mouth. By then, I didn't want to let her go. Something had shifted. This baby became the only thing that mattered. What about Marcus? Does he know Lily exists? He signed legal documents before she was born. Terminated all parental rights. I haven't heard from him since I was 3 months pregnant. Dante processed this information in silence. His fingers absently stroked Lily's back in a soothing rhythm, a gesture so tender it contrasted sharply with everything I knew about his reputation as a ruthless crime boss. How old are you, Caleb? 23. I'll be 24 in March. And you've been managing alone this entire time? No family support. My parents were traditional. When they found out I was pregnant by an alpha who wouldn't claim me, they said I brought shame to the family. I have a younger sister, but we haven't spoken in over a year. The words came out flat, emotionless. I cried enough tears over my family's rejection. I had none left. Dante stood, still cradling Lily against his chest, and walked to the window. He stared out at the city for what felt like an eternity. I sat frozen, waiting for the axe to fall. "I'm going to give you two choices," he finally said, turning back to face me. "Choice one, I'll give you a generous severance package, a solid reference letter, and you can leave today. No hard feelings. No legal repercussions for the forged documents. You and Lily walk away and never come back." My throat closed up. Even with a reference, finding another job would be nearly impossible. And the severance package, no matter how generous, wouldn't last long. But at least it wasn't as bad as I'd feared. At least I wouldn't end up in legal trouble. "What's the second option?" I managed to ask. Dante moved back to his desk, gently placing Lily in my arms before sitting on the edge of the desk directly in front of me. The proximity made my pulse race. "The second option is that you stay. But not as a maintenance worker." I blinked in confusion. "I don't understand." "You'll move to the guest wing. Proper accommodation suitable for you and Lily. I'll set up a nursery with everything a baby needs. You won't have to hide her anymore. In exchange, you'll work as my personal assistant. File organization, schedule management, correspondence. Nothing dangerous or questionable. Regular business hours. Fair compensation. Full benefits, including health care for both of you." I stared at him, convinced I'd misheard. "You're offering me a promotion? After I lied to get hired? Snuck a baby into your house? Completely deceived you. I'm offering you a second chance." His expression was unreadable. "I don't appreciate deception, Caleb. But I understand desperation. I recognize survival instincts when I see them. You did what you had to do to protect your child. That takes a certain kind of courage, or perhaps recklessness. Either way, I find it intriguing. Why would you do this?" The question burst out before I could stop it. "You don't know me. You have no reason to trust me. I could be dangerous. Or unstable. You're an Omega with a 4-month-old baby, working as a maintenance worker, because every other door was slammed in your face." Dante's tone was matter-of-fact. "You're not dangerous. You're desperate. And despite your lies, you clearly care deeply about doing right by your daughter. Those are qualities I can work with." Lily chose that moment to let out a happy squeal and reach toward Dante, clearly having decided this tall stranger was interesting and potentially fun. Dante's lips quirked into something almost resembling a smile as he gently caught Lily's reaching hand. "She likes you," I said softly, surprised. "Children and animals are good judges of character." Dante released Lily's hand and focused back on me. "So, what's your decision? Walk away with my blessing, or stay under new terms?" I looked down at Lily in my arms, her innocent face, trusting me to make the right choice. If I left, I'd be back where I started, struggling to find work, probably ending up in an even worse situation. But if I stayed, I'd be deeper in Dante Blackwood's world, working directly for a man whose business dealings probably didn't bear close examination. Yet when I met Dante's eyes, I didn't see cruelty or manipulation. I saw something unexpected, genuine interest, and perhaps even respect. "I'll stay," I heard myself say. "And thank you. Really, you didn't have to be this kind. Kindness has nothing to do with it." Dante straightened and pressed a button on his desk phone. "Mrs. Vance, prepare the blue suite in the guest wing. And contact Miller's Baby Boutique. I need a complete nursery setup delivered and installed by tonight. Spare no expense." He disconnected before Mrs. Vance could respond to what must have been a shocking request. "Welcome to your new position, Caleb." Dante extended his hand for a formal handshake. "I have a feeling things are about to get very interesting around here." As I shook his hand, feeling the warm strength of his grip, I couldn't help but agree. My carefully constructed lies had crumbled in the worst possible way. But somehow impossibly, I landed somewhere better than I dared to hope. 5 days passed. 5 days since my world had turned upside down, and I still couldn't quite believe this was real. The guest wing suite was more spacious than any place I'd ever lived. A king-sized bed with luxurious linens. A walk-in closet that could fit my entire previous apartment. An en-suite bathroom with both a shower and a deep soaking tub. Large windows overlooking the manor's gardens, letting in streams of natural light that made everything feel warm and welcoming. But the most incredible part was Lily's nursery. A complete, professionally designed space with a white crib that looked like something from a magazine. Shelves filled with age-appropriate toys. A cushioned changing table. A rocking chair positioned perfectly by the window. Everything a baby could possibly need, and more. Settling in, all right? Dante's voice came from the doorway. I turned from where I'd been arranging Lily's clothes in the nursery dresser. He stood leaning against the door frame, having traded his usual suit for dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that somehow made him look even more attractive. More than all right, I admitted, gesturing around the room. This is beyond anything I could have imagined. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find out it was all a dream. He stepped into the nursery, his presence immediately filling the space. It's real. You're here. Lily's here. And you're both staying. Lily was on a play mat on a floor, happily gumming a soft stuffed elephant and making contented baby noises. Dante crouched down beside her, and I watched in amazement as my usually fussy daughter immediately reached for him with grabbing hands and delighted squeals. She's gotten attached to you, I observed, unable to keep the wonder from my voice. The feeling is mutual. Dante picked up a rattle and shook it, earning a giggle from Lily. I had Mrs. Vance arrange for a tour tomorrow. She'll show you the entire estate so you know your way around. The library, the gym, the gardens, everything is available for your use. That's generous. But I should probably start working. You mentioned the personal assistant position, and I don't want to just be living here without contributing something. Dante looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. You're not a charity case, Caleb. But you've also just made a massive life change. Take a few days to adjust. Let Lily get comfortable. The work can wait. I'm not used to people being patient with me, I said quietly, sitting down on the floor across from them. Or kind for that matter. Then you've been surrounded by the wrong people. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. We fell into a comfortable silence, both of us watching Lily play. It felt strangely domestic, almost like we were a real family instead of an Omega who'd been caught in a lie and the Alpha who'd inexplicably shown him mercy. Can I ask you something personal? Dante said eventually. After everything that's happened, I think we're past formal boundaries. Fair point. He set down the rattle and met my eyes directly. Lily is obviously your whole world. But what about you? What do you want? Beyond just survival and keeping her safe, the question caught me completely off guard. No one had ever asked me what I wanted. My entire existence for the past year had been reduced to getting through each day. Feeding Lily, keeping her warm, making sure she was safe. There hadn't been room for wants. I don't know, I answered honestly. I haven't had the luxury of wanting things. I've been in survival mode for so long, I forgot there could be anything else. Start thinking about it. Dante stood and offered me his hand to help me up. His grip was warm and steady. You're safe here. Lily is safe. You have time now to figure out who you want to be, beyond just a parent in crisis mode. Why do you care? The question slipped out before I could stop it. You barely know me. You could have just fired me and moved on with your life. Instead, you're giving me opportunities one don't deserve. You deserve far more than you think you do. He still hadn't let go of my hand. And as for why I care, I recognize something in you. A strength that most people never have to discover because they're never pushed to their absolute limits. You were pushed there, and you didn't break. That's rare. My breath caught in my throat. I feel like I break a little bit every day, but you keep going anyway. That's what matters. His thumb brushed across my knuckles in a gesture that felt far too intimate for what we were supposed to be to each other. I spend my life surrounded by people who perform loyalty and strength. It's refreshing to meet someone who actually possesses both, without even realizing it. You're giving me too much credit. I don't think I'm giving you nearly enough. Lily chose that moment to let out a demanding cry, having apparently decided she was done with independent play and wanted attention. I pulled my hand from Dante's and scooped up my daughter, grateful for the interruption and the excuse to look away from those intense dark eyes. I should probably feed her and get her down for her nap, I said, my voice not quite steady. Of course. Dante headed toward the door, but paused in the threshold. Caleb, I meant what I said. Take time to think about what you want. Not what you think you should want, or what's practical, or what makes sense given your circumstances. What you actually want. After he left, I sat in a rocking chair with Lily and tried to process the conversation. What did I want? The question felt impossibly large. For so long, wanting anything beyond basic necessities had seemed like a dangerous indulgence. But sitting in that beautiful nursery, holding my daughter, knowing we were both safe and cared for, maybe I could start to want more. That evening, after Lily was asleep, I found myself unable to settle. I wandered through the suite, too restless to sleep, too keyed up to read. Finally, I stepped out onto the private balcony attached to my room and found Dante already there, leaning against the railing and looking out at the gardens. Couldn't sleep either, he asked without turning around. Too much on my mind. I joined him at the railing, maintaining a careful distance between us. Want to talk about it? I've been thinking about your question. About what I want. I took a deep breath. I want Lily to grow up knowing she's loved and valued. I want her to never doubt that she was wanted, that she matters. I want to be able to provide for her without constantly being terrified that everything will fall apart. And he prompted gently. What else do you want, Caleb? I want to not be alone anymore. The admission came out barely above a whisper. I've been so isolated for so long, making every decision by myself. Having no one to talk to, no one to share the burden with. I want to feel like I'm part of something bigger than just survival. Dante turned to face me fully. In the moonlight, his expression was softer than I'd ever seen it. You're not alone anymore. You have a place here. Not just as an employee or a temporary guest. A real place. Why are you being so good to me? My voice cracked slightly. People don't just help for no reason. What do you want from me? Honestly, I'm still figuring that out myself. He moved closer. Close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him, smell that intoxicating scent, smoke and whiskey, and something darker underneath. But I know that from the moment I saw you in that hallway, something shifted. And then when Lily crawled into my office and looked up at me with those curious eyes, grabbing my shoes like I was the most interesting thing in her world, he shook his head slowly. Something clicked into place. Dante, I can't be someone's project or charity case. I've been through too much too. You're not a project. His hand came up to cup my cheek, his touch gentle despite the calluses on his palm. You're someone who walked into my life when I wasn't looking for anyone and somehow made me realize how empty everything had become. This manor, the power, the business empire, it all felt hollow. And then there was you. This brave, stubborn Omega trying so hard to protect your daughter and build a life from nothing. I don't know what to do with this, I whispered, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. With you saying these things, you don't have to do anything. Just stay. Let me get to know you. Let me be part of your life and Lily's life. See where it goes. His forehead rested against mine, his scent washing over me, and something else. Something deeper, more primal. His alpha pheromones, wrapping around me like a warm blanket, making my Omega instinct sing. Mine, they whispered. This alpha could be yours. This is crazy, I breathed. 5 days ago, I was hiding in the basement. Now I'm standing on a balcony while a mafia boss tells me he wants to be part of my life. Life gets crazy sometimes. I could hear the smile in his voice. The question is whether you're brave enough to embrace it. I pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. I'm terrified. Good. That means it matters. His thumb stroked across my cheekbone. Take all the time you need, Caleb. I'm not going anywhere. He stepped away then, giving me space, and I immediately missed his warmth. Good night. If you or Lily need anything, I'm just down the hall. After he left, I stayed on the balcony for a long time, trying to calm my racing thoughts and settle my confused heart. Everything was moving so fast, yet somehow it also felt inevitable, like pieces falling into place that had always been meant to fit together. Inside, I checked on Lily one last time before finally crawling into bed. As I lay there in the darkness, I couldn't stop thinking about Dante's words. His touch. The way he looked at me like I was something precious rather than something broken. Maybe, just maybe, I could let myself want this. Want him. Want the possibility of something more than just survival. Maybe I could be brave enough to take the risk. 2 weeks transformed everything. I settled into a routine that felt almost surreal in its normalcy. Mornings spent with Lily. Afternoons assisting Dante with organizational tasks that were surprisingly engaging. Evenings that often found the three of us together, like an actual family. Dante took us on what he called getting to know you outings. Private dinners at upscale restaurants where the staff treated us like royalty. Long walks through the manor's extensive gardens while Lily rode in a stroller that probably cost more than my previous month's rent. Movie nights in the home theater, where Dante introduced Lily to animated classics while she sat in his lap, mesmerized by the colors on the screen. And through it all, I found myself falling. Falling for the way he looked at Lily, like she was the most precious thing in his world. Falling for the way he listened when I talked, really listened, like everything I said mattered. Falling for the small things, the cups of coffee he left outside my door in the morning, the books he'd accidentally leave in my suite that he thought I might enjoy, the way his hand would find the small of my back when we walked through the manor together. Falling for him. It was during one of these quiet evenings, after Lily had fallen asleep in Dante's arms and been transferred to her crib, that everything shifted again. We were on the main balcony overlooking the estate, sharing a bottle of wine and watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. The silence between us had grown comfortable, no longer heavy with uncertainty and fear. I need to tell you something, Dante said, setting down his wine glass. My stomach clenched reflexively. That sounds ominous. It's not bad. At least I hope you won't think it's bad. He turned to face me, and even in the dim light, I could see the intensity in his expression. These past 2 weeks with you and Lily, they've been the best I can remember in years. Maybe ever. They've been good for us too, I admitted. Better than good. Lily adores you. And I. And you, he prompted gently. I'm starting to trust you. Which terrifies me, if I'm being honest. The last time I trusted someone, it ended with me alone and pregnant and being told to deal with my own problems. I'm not him. Dante's voice carried absolute conviction. I will never abandon you or Lily. Never. I need you to understand that. How can you be so sure? You barely know us. I know enough. He moved closer. I know you're fiercely protective and incredibly resilient. I know you put Lily's needs above your own every single time. I know you're afraid of taking up space or asking for things you need because you've been conditioned to believe you don't deserve them. His hand found mine. And I know that every day I spend with you, I want more days. More moments. More of everything. My heart was racing. What are you saying? I'm saying I want this to be real. Not just me helping you out or providing a safe place. I want to build something with you. A future. A family. His fingers intertwined with mine. I want to be your alpha. Officially. If you'll have me. The word hung in the air between us, loaded with meaning. An alpha claiming an omega wasn't just romantic, it was permanent, binding, a commitment that went soul deep. Dante, that's huge. That's forever. I know exactly what I'm asking. Those dark eyes held mine steadily. And I understand if you need time. After what you've been through, trust doesn't come easy. But I want you to know where I stand. I'm all in, Caleb. Completely. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Too many emotions were crashing through me at once. Hope and fear and longing and terror, all tangled together. Before I could sort through any of it, chaos erupted from the front of the estate. Shouting, the screech of tires, security alarms blaring. Dante's entire body went rigid, his alpha instincts immediately shifting into protective mode. His scent changed, the warm smoke and whiskey replaced by something sharper, more dangerous. Protective. Possessive. Stay here, he said, already moving toward the door. What's happening? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Lock yourself in the nursery with Lily. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Fear spiked through me, sharp and cold. I ran to the nursery, scooped a stirring Lily from her crib, and locked the door behind me. Through the windows, I could see lights flooding the front drive. Security personnel running. Shouting voices I couldn't quite make out. And then my blood turned to ice. I recognized that voice. Screaming obscenities. Recognized the angry, slurred cadence of someone who was drunk and dangerous. Marcus, Lily's biological father. The man who'd wanted nothing to do with us. The man who'd signed away his rights and disappeared from our lives. He was here. And from the sound of it, he was armed and furious. I pressed myself into the corner of the nursery, clutching Lily to my chest while she began to fuss, sensing my distress. Outside, the shouting grew louder. I could hear Marcus screaming about his rights, his daughter, how I'd stolen what belonged to him. Then I heard Dante's voice. Cold, commanding, cutting through the chaos like a blade. You have no rights here. You signed legal documents terminating your parental claim. You have 3 seconds to leave this property before I have you removed by force. That's my daughter. My blood. You can't keep her from me. Marcus's voice was unhinged, desperate in a way that made my skin crawl. Your daughter. Dante's voice was ice. You didn't want her when she was born. You told Caleb to handle the problem himself. Abandon them both without a second thought. You don't get to show up now and claim ownership. I'll kill you. I'll kill all of you and take what's mine. The sound of a gunshot shattered the night. I screamed, unable to help myself. Lily began crying in earnest, her wails piercing the darkness. Seconds later, there were more sounds, scuffling, someone hitting the ground, security guards shouting orders. Then silence. Terrible, endless silence. A knock on the nursery door made me jump. Caleb, it's me. You're safe. Open the door. Dante's voice. I fumbled with the lock and yanked the door open to find him standing there, completely unharmed, but radiating barely controlled fury. Behind him, I could see security personnel dragging Marcus's unconscious form across the marble floor, his hand bleeding from where Dante must have shot the weapon from his grip. Is he alive? Unfortunately, Dante stepped into the nursery and immediately pulled me and Lily into his arms. He'll live to stand trial for attempted murder, breaking and entering, and violating a restraining order I'm filing first thing tomorrow morning. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. How did he find us? How did he know? I don't know yet, but I will find out. His hand stroked through my hair, trying to soothe. You're safe. Lily is safe. I promise you, he will never get close to you again. He had a gun. He could have killed you, but he didn't. And now he's going to prison for a very long time. Dante pulled back just enough to look at me, his expression fierce. Listen to me carefully. You are under my protection now. Both of you. That means something in my world. It means no one touches you without going through me first. And I don't lose. Lily was still crying, overwhelmed by all the commotion. Dante gently took her from my arms and began the practiced rocking motion that usually calmed her down, murmuring soft reassurances. I need to ask you something, Dante said once Lily had quieted to hiccuping whimpers. And I need you to really think about your answer. What is it? Let me claim you. Tonight. Officially. So that legally, socially, and in every way that matters, you and Lily are mine. Under my name. Under my protection. Where no one can ever question your right to be here or try to take her from you again. My mind was reeling from the attack, from the fear, from the adrenaline still coursing through my system. But underneath all of that, one truth rang clear. I was tired of being afraid. Tired of being alone. Tired of fighting every battle by myself. And Dante had proven over and over that he meant what he said. That he would protect us. That he genuinely cared. Yes, I whispered. I'm ready. Claim me. The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise after a long, dark night. Then let's make this official. The claiming ceremony was private, witnessed only by Dante's most trusted advisors, who could testify to its legitimacy. Traditional words were spoken. The bond mark was placed on my neck, just where my shoulder met my throat, a permanent claiming bite that would scent as his for the rest of my life. The moment his teeth sank into my skin, I felt it. A rush of warmth. A flood of his scent, smoke and whiskey, and something darker, pouring into me. A connection snapping into place that went beyond the physical, beyond the emotional, straight into something primal and eternal. He was mine. I was his. And when he pulled back, licking the mark to seal it, his eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them. Hungry. Possessive. Alpha. Mine, he growled, low and rough. Yours, I agreed, my voice shaking. And then he kissed me, deep and claiming and full of promise, and the world fell away. The next morning, legal documents were signed and sealed. I was officially Dante Blackwood's bonded Omega, and Lily was in the process of being legally adopted as Dante's daughter. But Marcus wasn't done fighting. From his hospital bed, where he was recovering from the gunshot wound to his hand, under police guard, he filed an emergency custody petition. His lawyers claimed I'd manipulated him, that the documents he'd signed were forged, that as the biological father, he had superior rights regardless of what papers said otherwise. The media descended like vultures. Mafia boss claims Omega and child, read one headline. Custody battle erupts over infant daughter, screamed another. Photographers camped outside the manor gates. Reporters tried to bribe staff members for inside information. I felt like I couldn't breathe under the weight of it all. We're going to win this, Dante's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Victoria Chin, assured us. She sat across from us in Dante's study, while Lily played on a blanket nearby. The evidence is overwhelmingly in your favor. Marcus signed termination papers while sober and of sound mind. He had multiple opportunities to be involved and chose not to. He threatened you, attempted murder, and showed up intoxicated with a weapon. No judge in their right mind would grant him custody. But biological rights carry weight, I said, my hands twisting together anxiously. What if the judge decides that matters more than anything else? Then we present evidence of his complete unsuitability as a parent. Victoria pulled out a thick file folder. We have documented proof of his substance abuse, his violent tendencies, his financial irresponsibility, and his complete absence from Lily's life. We have your testimony about the abortion pressure. We have medical records showing you went through with the procedure he demanded. We have text messages where he explicitly told you he wanted nothing to do with the baby. Plus, Dante added, his hand finding mine and squeezing reassuringly, we have the legal claim and adoption. Lily is my daughter now in every way that matters. I've already added her to my health insurance, set up a trust fund in her name, and listed her as my heir. Try finding a judge who will reverse that without extraordinary cost. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Those days were torture. A constant cycle of preparing testimony, reviewing evidence, and trying to maintain some semblance of normal routine for Lily's sake. And through it all, I felt the claiming bond settling into my bones. Dante's presence in my mind. His emotions bleeding into mine, protective, possessive, fierce. Every time I felt fear, his rage answered it. Every time I felt doubt, his certainty countered it. He was with me constantly now, even when he wasn't in the room. And something else was happening too. Something I hadn't expected. My heat cycle was approaching. I've been suppressing it for months, using scent blockers and suppressants to keep my omega biology in check. But the claiming bond had changed things. My body was responding to Dante's presence, his scent, his proximity. My suppressed heats were trying to break through. I noticed it first in small ways. The way my skin felt more sensitive. The way his scent made me lightheaded. The way I found myself gravitating toward him without conscious thought, wanting to be close, wanting to touch. Dante noticed too. I could tell by the way his eyes followed me. The way his nostrils flared when I entered a room. The way his scent deepened when I was near. That smoke and whiskey smell turning darker, richer, more intense. "You're approaching heat," he said one evening, cornering me in the hallway outside the nursery. It wasn't a question. I've been suppressing it, I admitted, not meeting his eyes. For months. But since the claiming, your body is responding to me. His voice was low, rough. "Caleb, look at me." I looked up. His eyes were almost black, pupils blown wide. His scent was overwhelming this close, wrapping around me, sinking into my skin, making my knees weak. "How long?" he asked. "I don't know. A few days, maybe. Less if." "If what?" "If you keep looking at me like that." A growl rumbled in his chest, low and possessive and hungry. "You should have told me. I don't want to add to everything else." With the hearing coming up, and Marcus and Caleb, he stepped closer, caging me against the wall. Not threatening, protecting. His body forming a barrier between me and the rest of the world. Your heat is not an inconvenience. It's not something to be managed or suppressed. It's part of you. Part of us now. I know, but do you know what happens when a claimed omega goes into heat without their alpha present? I swallowed hard. I've read about it. It's painful. Dangerous, even. Exactly. His hand came up to cup my face, tilting my chin so I couldn't look away. "So you're going to tell me when it starts. You're going to let me take care of you. And we're going to get through it together. Understand?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Good." His thumb brushed across my lower lip. "Because I have no intention of letting you suffer through anything alone. Not anymore. Not ever." The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I stood in the nursery watching Lily sleep peacefully, completely unaware that her entire future hung in the balance. "She's going to be fine." Dante's arms wrapped around me from behind, pulling me against his chest. His scent enveloped me, soothing, protective, alpha. "We're going to be fine. Trust me. I'm trying. I really am." I leaned into his warmth. But what if something goes wrong? What if Marcus's lawyers find some loophole we didn't anticipate? Then we fight harder. We appeal. We take it as far as we need to go. His lips brushed against the claiming mark on my neck, sending shivers through me. "I told you before, I don't lose. Especially not when it comes to protecting what's mine." "Mine," he'd said. And for the first time, I didn't feel owned. I felt cherished. The courtroom was cold and imposing, all dark wood and formal procedure. Marcus sat at the plaintiff's table, looking cleaned up and sober, playing the part of a concerned father who'd been wronged. It made my stomach turn. His lawyer painted a picture of a young alpha who'd been overwhelmed by unexpected pregnancy news, who'd made mistakes but was now ready to step up and be a parent. They claimed I'd taken advantage of his moment of weakness to get him to sign papers he didn't fully understand. They argue that biological bonds were sacred and shouldn't be severed except in extreme cases. Then it was our turn. Victoria Chin systematically destroyed every argument they'd made. She presented the termination documents with timestamps showing Marcus had taken 3 days to review them before signing. She showed bank records proving he never paid a cent of child support despite being legally obligated to do so even after termination. She played recordings of his threatening voicemails from the past year that I'd saved without even knowing why. And then Dante took the stand. "Mr. Blackwood," Victoria began, "can you explain your relationship with Caleb and Lily? Caleb is my bonded omega. Lily is my adopted daughter. They're my family." His voice was clear, unwavering, carrying the absolute conviction of truth. "And what role do you play in Lily's daily life? I'm her father. In every meaningful sense. I feed her, change her, play with her, comfort her when she cries. I've rearranged my entire schedule to be present for her important moments. I've set up her future education fund, her medical care, her inheritance. She's not just legally mine, she's mine in every way that counts." Objection, emotional appeal, Marcus's lawyer interjected. Overruled. "Mr. Blackwood is answering the question asked." The judge made a note. "Continue, Mr. Blackwood. Lily knows me as her father. When she's scared, she reaches for me. When she's happy, she wants to share it with me. I was there for her first laugh, her first time rolling over, her first taste of solid food." Dante's gaze shifted to Marcus, cold, unwavering. Where was her biological father? Nowhere. Because he made the choice to walk away. And I made the choice to step up. When Marcus took the stand, his performance crumbled under cross-examination. Victoria was merciless, forcing him to admit he demanded I terminate the pregnancy, that he'd threatened to ruin my life if I tried to claim child support, that he blocked my number and refused all contact. "So, to be clear," Victoria said, "you wanted nothing to do with this child for the first 4 months of her life. You only decided you cared about custody after learning that Caleb had found stability and protection from a wealthy alpha. Is that accurate?" "That's not. I mean, I always cared. I just—" Marcus stumbled over his words, and I could see the judge's expression harden. The final verdict came after a brief recess. Having reviewed all evidence and testimony, the judge announced, "This court finds that Mr. Marcus voluntarily and knowingly terminated his parental rights. The subsequent adoption by Mr. Dante Blackwood is legal and valid. Furthermore, Mr. Marcus's recent behavior, including armed assault, trespassing, and attempted kidnapping, demonstrates clear unsuitability for custody. The petition is denied. Custody and all parental rights remain with Mr. Caleb Blackwood and Mr. Dante Blackwood. This case is closed." The relief that flooded through me was so intense I nearly collapsed. Dante's arm around my waist was the only thing keeping me upright. We'd won. Completely and totally won. That night, after Lily was asleep and the media frenzy had been temporarily escaped, Dante and I sat together in the privacy of our bedroom. Our bedroom now. Not just mine. "I can't believe it's really over," I said, still feeling stunned. "It's over. Lily is ours. You're mine. And nothing and no one can change that." He pulled me into his lap, holding me close. "We're a family now. Officially. Legally. Permanently. I love you." The words spilled out before I could second-guess them. "I know it's fast. And maybe I shouldn't feel this way yet, but I do. I love you, Dante." His smile could have lit up the entire manor. "I love you, too." He pressed his forehead against mine. "From that first moment in the hallway, when you tried to make yourself invisible, I was drawn to you. And every day, since has only made me more certain that you're exactly where you're supposed to be." The kiss was soft and sweet and full of promise. When we finally pulled apart, Dante's expression shifted, growing darker, hungrier. "You're close to your heat," he said. It wasn't a question. I could feel it now, the warmth building low in my belly, the way my skin was growing more sensitive, the way his scent was making me lightheaded. Soon, I admitted. Tonight. Maybe tomorrow. Then let's not waste any more time. He carried me to the bedroom, our bedroom, and laid me down on the bed with a gentleness that belied the hunger in his eyes. Tell me if you need me to stop, he said, his voice rough. Tell me if it's too much. It won't be too much, I promised. I need you, Dante. I've needed you since the moment I saw you. His heat came 3 days later. I woke to Caleb's scent flooding the room, sweet and desperate and needy. His body was flushed, his skin hot to the touch, his eyes glassy with want. Alpha, he whimpered, reaching for me. Please, I'm here. I gathered him into my arms, pressing my nose to his throat, breathing him in. I've got you. I'm not going anywhere. The next 3 days were a blur of sweat and skin and desperate, aching need. His heat broke through all his defenses, all his careful control, leaving him raw and open and mine. And I was there for every moment of it, holding him, taking care of him, proving to him with every touch, every kiss, every whispered word that he would never have to face anything alone again. When his heat finally broke, we lay tangled together in the sheets, exhausted and sated and closer than I'd ever been to another person. I love you, he whispered against my chest. I know I've said it before, but I need you to know. I mean it. I've never meant anything more. I know. I pressed a kiss to his hair. And I love you too. More than I ever thought I could love anyone. He shifted, looking up at me with those beautiful eyes. What happens now? Now. I smiled, tracing my fingers down his spine. Now we live. We raise Lily. We figure out what forever looks like, together. Together, he repeated, like he was testing the weight of the word. Together, I confirmed. Always. 3 months later, I stood in Lily's nursery, watching Dante rock her to sleep. He was singing some old lullaby I didn't recognize, his deep voice soft and gentle as he cradled our daughter against his chest. Lily's eyes were drooping, her tiny fist wrapped around his finger, completely content in the arms of the alpha who'd chosen her. Who'd chosen us? You're staring, Dante said without looking up. I'm admiring. I leaned against the door frame, crossing my arms. There's a difference, is there? Staring is creepy. Admiring is appreciation. He snorted softly, not wanting to wake Lily. And what exactly are you appreciating? Everything. I moved closer, running my hand over his back. The way you are with her. The way you are with me. The fact that we're here, safe, together, family. I didn't think I'd ever have this. Dante finished settling Lily into her crib, pulling the blanket up around her small body. Then he turned to me, pulling me into his arms. You have it now, he said against my hair. And you're never going to lose it. I promise you that. I tilted my face up to kiss him, soft, sweet, full of everything I couldn't put into words. Lily's going to need a sibling eventually, he murmured against my lips. I laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in years. One major life event at a time, please. Let me adjust to being a bonded Omega married to a Mafia boss before we start planning baby number 2. Fair enough. He kissed the claiming mark on my neck, sending shivers through me. But the offer stands. Whenever you're ready. I'm here, he added, pulling back to meet my eyes. Always. Forever. As I drifted off to sleep that night, wrapped in Dante's arms with our daughter sleeping peacefully in the next room, I finally understood what home felt like. Not a place. Not a building. But this. Safety. Love. Belonging. The absolute certainty that I would never have to face the world alone again. This was my family. My future. My forever. And it had all started with one baby's curious crawl into an alpha's office.